Talk Radio. You're in to all things music.
The lesson of Lionel Richie is 6 months later, he hosts the American Music Awards.
Right.
Okay? He's on the cover of TV Guide, which at the time is the biggest publication in America. Mm-hmm. He writes and records We Are the World with Michael Jackson. Mm-hmm. The week following, he does all kinds of press. And 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, he hosts the American Music Awards.
Right.
So, but 2-3 weeks later, he's a guest on the Grammys,
right.
and he wins 3 Grammys. He won 6 American Music Awards. He won 3 Grammys. Mm-hmm. Okay? Now, his career goes through the roof. But the truth is, if you added up all the people who saw him on all those places, you still wouldn't come to as many people as saw him on the Olympics.
Right.
The difference was they saw multiple impressions.
Welcome to Making It with Terry Woolman, the show that explores the secrets, successes, and strategies for making it in the music biz. And now, here's your host, Terry Woolman.
Welcome to the show, and thank you for tuning in. I want to say a quick thank you to my guest on last week's episode, Melissa Manchester. To celebrate 1 year of shows, Melissa took over hosting Making It to interview me on a video and radio simulcast, and it was a lot of fun and pretty insightful. As a matter of fact, I shared some stories that I've never told anybody, so thank you, Melissa, for celebrating 1 year of Making It with Terry Woolman. If you didn't get to see it, you can find all of our episodes at entertalkradio.com/makingit, or download our app and take us with you. Also, be sure to tune in for upcoming episodes with bassist composer Nathan East, singer, actress, choreographer Tony Basil, percussionist Lenny Castro, and also behind-the-scenes look at Taylor Guitars. So we've got some cool things coming up. I'd like to take a moment to also thank the companies that helped me sound my best in the studio and on stage. Blue Microphones, Seymour Duncan Pickups, Taylor Guitars, Mesa Boogie Amps, D'Addario Strings and Planet Waves, Motu Digital Performer, IK Multimedia, and Exotic Effects. So often I get asked questions about the creative process, so I created this show to focus on what it takes to have a lasting career in the ever-changing landscape of the music business. You're really in for a treat, as I've invited my friends, some of the best and brightest in the industry, to share their stories on how they have influenced the music that has shaped our lives. I guarantee you're going to love it. So let's get started. My guest this week is author, speaker, nonprofit consultant, TV film producer, and music manager, Ken Kragen. A graduate of Harvard Business School, Ken Kragen's illustrious career transcends the music and entertainment industry, where he spent many incredible, successful years. He has managed some of the world's most important entertainers, including Kenny Rogers, Lionel Richie, Trisha Yearwood, Olivia Newton John, the Bee Gees, Burt Reynolds, the Smothers Brothers, and many others. He was the creator and organizer of the historic humanitarian projects We Are the World, Hands Across America, and NetAid. Amazingly, over 95% of the acts he managed have become stars, and 90% of the projects he created and spearheaded have achieved success. During the past few years, Kragen has devoted his time to teaching, speaking, and writing, as well as consulting for leading corporations and nonprofit organizations. He teaches a 10-week undergraduate course at the Herb Alpert School of Music called Stardom Strategies for Musicians, based on his unique concepts of career development and formulas for advancing projects to a higher level of excellence. Ken and his friend Quincy Jones produced a portion of the 1992 presidential inauguration of President Bill Clinton, and Kragen recently helped stage a national campaign that got 1.3 million kids to stand up and take a pledge against bullying. He has written the best-selling book, Life is a Contact Sport, which is filled with unique and well-tested career advice. Kragen is most proud of receiving the United Nations Peace Medal for the creation of Hands Across America and We Are the World, making him one of a mere handful of private citizens to receive this honor. Please welcome my guest today, Ken Kragen. Hi, Ken.
Hi, Terry. It's great to be here.
It's great to see you.
Yeah.
And here is in your office, amongst some really wonderful memorabilia and pictures of your family. And
yeah, it's a fun place. I started, it's funny, somebody came to me years ago. I had this wonderful office building for 25 years, said, how much you want for it? And I said, it's not for sale. I've been here 25 years. It's like a house. It's gorgeous. And he said, no. How much you want for it? Went home, talked to my wife. Next thing I know, we gave him something outrageous, and he said, you're out in 30 days. And I moved home, and I thought, I'll be home for 1 month.
Right.
Well, it's 10 years later,
right,
and I'm still here.
Do you like having home offices?
Oh, it's so easy.
Yeah.
You roll out of bed. I work in my workout clothes.
Right.
It's the best.
Yeah.
It really is fun. You know, the only problem is you sort of work day and night.
I was just going to ask, do you find that you're overworking?
When I'm truly busy, I sometimes feel that way.
Right.
Lately, I've cut back some, so it's a little more manageable.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just, but working out of your house is, I mean, right away I looked at it and I was saving $50,000 a month.
Right.
I went,
right.
Holy cow. I cut staff, I cut everything.
Yeah.
It was just great.
I love having a home studio.
Yeah.
There's the upside and there is the downside as well. I mean, I get great work done. I can record in my workout clothes, like you said.
Yeah.
And but it's important to have balance in your life.
Yeah.
Which I know that you do. I mean, that's one of the things that have always found really interesting about your career. You feel that it's important to, you know, as a matter of fact, you say that really your career isn't your life.
No,
it isn't who you are.
Your career is one of the tools
right.
that you can use for the best life possible.
Right.
But it's only one of them.
Yes.
Okay? You have to take it along with all the other things that can happen in your life and that are part of your life, your family, you know, your interests, your hobbies, your relationships, charity work, whatever, all of it comes, and each of it is a tool you use to have the best life possible. Mm-hmm. So, and I teach that when I teach at UCLA, which I've done a lot. I've actually done about 11 years of classes at UCLA. I try to imbue in the students a way to look at what's going to give you the most fulfillment, the most enjoyment, the most pleasure. If you find the things that you're passionate about, and that's a big word. Passion. Every guest at my class comes up with that same word. Find what you're passionate about. Right. You'll never work a day in your life. Right. I mean, there's a lot of those kind of sort of cliche now, but they're real. They're really
based on
true.
Truth.
They're absolutely true. You find what you're excited about. Mm-hmm. And I think when people say to me, so, you know, how do you choose what you do? I say, I do what looks like fun, or I can be passionate about, or I'm excited about, or it's going to affect a lot of people, and that's going to make me feel good and feel fulfilled. And, you know, I literally have my students sit down. They go home that first night, and they make a balance sheet. They put all the things they like in one side, and they prioritize them. What do you most enjoy doing, and so on. I mean, there was a time in my life when I put playing basketball as number one. Right. You know, and I tell them put sex on there, put everything on there. Don't hesitate. Mm-hmm. What are your biggest, passionate, most fun things in life? And then do on the opposite side the things you dislike, the things you'd most like to avoid in your life. Now, you're not going to always get to avoid everything that you don't like when you're working or doing anything in your career, and you're not going to get to have everything be at the top of that passion list and that likes list. But if you can maximize the likes and you can minimize the dislikes, you can end up with something that you'll probably be very successful with, because you're going to enjoy it thoroughly, and it's going to fulfill you. Yeah, and that's the simple, thing that I think feeds it to the theme of what you talk about on this show. Right. I think practically nothing is more, relevant than that particular thing.
Before we talk about your early childhood and then get into your class and what you teach, I just want to make an observation. One of the things, since we're talking about balance, is that you have managed in your life to find a way to create balance in your business life, in your personal life. You have become a master at creating prosperity for yourself and for your clients, but at the same time, you've also found the balance for creating important things for the planet, for the world. Things that benefit, that are more selfless. And And the thing that intrigues me about that is the balance aspect of that. And how do you do that?
I don't know. Well, a couple
Or
of
why
things.
do you do that?
I think I want to go back to my dad, okay?
That's where I'm leading this
Yeah,
to.
really.
Okay.
When I was 15 years old,
Right.
my father was a big-time lawyer in Los Angeles. He represented 11 studios. He was the managing director of a big firm called Loeb & Loeb that's still around, but in those days they were the firm in the entertainment business
Right.
here. He represented Deborah Carr, William Holden, Alan Ladd, Mickey Rooney. They were all his private clients.
Right.
He was making a lot of money.
Yes.
And the University of California, where he had gone and graduated both undergrad and law school, where he'd met my mom, they offered him the paltry amount, $12,500 a year to go back and teach at Bold Hall at the law school. And he took it.
He took the job.
And we moved.
Right.
It was like a total demonstration of follow what you love.
Yes.
He
And what you
stayed there
believe in.
42 years. He taught till he was 87. He chaired committees till he was 95. He died in his sleep at 98. He was like a living example of live your passion, enjoy your passion.
Right.
He was passionate about the law. He was passionate about teaching the law. There are tons of lawyers I run into now who had him and respected him. He was a very famous lawyer. He's a little bit like the paper chase. He was very tough. He walked in the first day, or one of the early days of class, called on a student, Mr. Williams, and said, "I'm sorry, sir, I had a rough night last night. I'm not prepared." He said, "Well, Mr. Jones, no, I'm sorry, sir." And you get to the third one, Mr. Smith, he said, I'm afraid I'm like the other two. My dad closed his books and left. He said, "I'll be back when you guys are prepared."
Right.
And he was a master. He was very famous there for that. But I think that taught me the lesson in the best possible way you could,
To follow your passion.
Follow your passion. And
do
the
what
other
you
part
love.
of it, there's a second part of it. And the second part of it is this inherent belief, and I'd like to say it's religious, but it really isn't, although it's very parallel to that, in that I believe everything happens for a good reason. So no matter what happens in life, in my life, I view it as an opportunity, even the bad things. When Harry Chapin, who was my client at the time, was killed in a car accident, within 2 hours I had raised $200,000 for the causes he believed in, because I knew once Harry was gone, we weren't going to have that opportunity. And I called people to tell them about our loss, but I also called them to say, look, we got to keep Harry's work going. What can you contribute? I always found in anything and everything that happens, and I can give a lot of examples, but I don't think we want to take time for them here, where you can look at whatever's happening, no matter how far negative you may think of it, and how you can turn it into something that has positive aspect. Maybe the best example is Mothers Against Drunk Driving. I mean, those women lost their kids to drunk drivers, formed an organization which saved millions of lives. It hasn't brought their kids back.
No.
But what it has done is given their kids' death a purpose.
Right.
And it's made it easier for them.
Right. And it's helped other families
And it's helped,
as well.
and it's saved many other lives.
Yeah. You have said before that after Harry Chapin died that you almost felt like he inhabited your body. And somehow that set you on a course of wanting to continue to stop hunger in the world and Hands Across America and We Are the World and all the other things that you've...
I actually, I have to, this comes from the fact that I'm not a terrifically religious person.
Did you grow up religious
I grew
in your
up
family?
in the Jewish church, synagogues and stuff, but at 15 I was confirmed, and that was kind of the end of it for me, for a variety of reasons.
You were bar mitzvah too?
No, I never was bar mitzvah, but I was confirmed.
Right.
And but the very famous rabbi, Rabbi Magnin, who was a very famous down here in Los Angeles, at the time said, you don't know anything about what happened before in your life. You probably won't know anything after you die. Live your life to the fullest.
That's a good rabbi.
And I just sort of took that and ran with it. And but the thing is, anyway, that kind of philosophy, I think that just drove that whole thing into me, and set that course, you know. And that again was at 15. I mean, it's interesting if I think about it, and I have never thought about it before. these things were all happening because right after that, one of the reasons that I no longer went to synagogue was we moved to Berkeley.
Right.
My parents didn't like the synagogue up there that much. My dad had been teaching Sunday school. He had a falling out with the people up there, and all of a sudden we weren't going.
They just pulled you out of
Yeah,
that.
we weren't going.
Right.
And I was a basketball player, and
Right.
I was president of my club and raising money, believe it or not, for charities already. And
You were already doing that.
Yeah, after I did We Are the World,
Right.
my mom sent me a picture of me handing a $64 check, which in 1950, mid-50s,
Yeah.
was a lot of money.
Yeah.
$64 that we had raised from a
raised.
dance that we had done, right?
fantastic.
To the Red Cross.
Right.
So I was doing it right, way back then. But we talk about the fact Harry was certainly the inspiration
Yeah.
for We Are the World and other stuff that I did. And during We Are the World, I had this moment. I had just come from seeing the Big Life magazine that actually, here's...
Oh, that's great.
I'd just come from seeing... Throw that away. I'd just come from seeing that.
That's this.
And it's like an 8-page spread. They showed me the preview of it. And I was in the car, and we were driving away from this, and my God, all of a sudden I felt like Harry had just literally crawled up inside me and was controlling everything. I had that physical experience, and I was just like, unbelievable. It was, really, really something.
It's kind of a blessing to be able to carry on his part of his life work.
Yeah, sorry. I
It's okay.
got a little emotional there. I think
understand.
about my dad and Harry and all that.
You've had some really beautiful influences in your life.
Yeah, and that's an important thing.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things I think, reasons that I like to teach so much, because I get the feedback at the end of the year where they write evaluations. And when you see the kind of impact you've had on young people by, sharing your experience, sharing your knowledge, it's, to me, I try to teach people how to have a great life, just like what you're trying to do with the show.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
know?
Let's talk about your class.
Yeah.
That you teach and lecture on, because there's some really amazing points of view that you have from all of your experience, years of producing and managing artists. So you have found, basically, your class is based on you standing back and looking at everything that's worked and everything that hasn't worked,
Exactly.
and analyzing it.
I spent 100 hours, literally, researching my career, because by the time I started teaching in the mid-'80s, and when I began to teach, I reviewed, trying to find the things that I could share. I went back over my whole career.
You researched your own life.
Which started really in the late 50s, early 60s. And
As a manager, where did you start?
I started producing concerts for groups like the Kingston Trio and a group called the Limelighters and stuff in high school and college.
Right.
And then went to Harvard Business School. The Kingston Trio offered me a job producing their concerts.
Right.
And they already had a manager named Frank Werber. I wanted to take the job, and my father, who was at the time dean or a vice chancellor at the UC Berkeley, said, if you don't go, you've been accepted at Harvard Business School, if you don't go, you'll never go.
Right.
And he was totally right. So I went off to college, first to Europe with my family.
So there was no ultimatum. It was just a piece of information that he gave
and
you.
the only
insight.
time that he ever really pushed me to do anything that I didn't necessarily want to do.
Yeah.
I came back from Europe right to Harvard, right to Boston. Was first day in my dorm room, and a guy walked in and said, have you heard this song, Tom Dooley, by the Kingston Trio? It's the #1 record in the country. And I went, oh, my career is
There it
gone
goes.
right by me.
The ship has sailed.
It sailed. I lost that opportunity.
That would have been me. Right.
Yeah, and I did some work for them, produced a few concerts from the area while I was going to Harvard, which was a 2-year master's program. And that was invaluable to me in many ways. It kind of gave me an overview of business in a way that I would never have gotten managing.
Yeah.
But I didn't use it much for many years. But, I came out of there, 1960, a group asked me to manage him, and I went out and managed him in a group called the Limelighters, and within 6 months or a year, I had them as the #2 group on RCA behind Elvis Presley.
And did you stay in Boston or move to New York or back to LA?
I came back to San Francisco.
San Francisco, okay.
When, at Harvard Business School, they had you, this is sort of fits into what we were talking about, your career is not your life earlier.
Yeah.
They give you a form, or at least they did then, a long time ago, and it said, one of the many things you had to write on the form was, what is your career goal? Mm-hmm. And I wrote, live in San Francisco. Oh. And they sent it back to me.
Right.
With a note saying, we didn't ask where you wanted to live, we asked, what is your career goal? What are you looking for a career? Mm-hmm. I wrote back, live in San Francisco. I'll sweep the streets, right. But I'm going to go live in San Francisco. I was from there by that time. I loved the city, and I want to go back. So they said, fine. Well, this group took me on that was based out of the Bay Area, out of San Francisco. I went back there. I first, by the way, before they even started managing, I started managing them. I tried to get a job in advertising in San Francisco. All the executives from New York and other places wanted to live in San Francisco. You couldn't. They said, we can get experienced people with 25 years of experience who will come out and work for us here in lower positions. Right. So I was going to be frustrating. But I was able to manage a group that got hot. And
take them to the top of the charts.
And the day they broke up, I signed a group called the Smothers Brothers.
Beautiful. And
literally, it on the same day that the Limelighters broke up. So I went from one success to another with it.
We're going to head into our first break right now, and when we come back, we'll pick up with the Smothers Brothers and then into some of the details about the class that you teach. Great. Thank you for having me here in your office, and we will be right back. I'm here with Ken Kragen, and stick around for more interesting conversation on Making It with Terry Wallen.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
And you're listening to Making It with Terry Wollman.
Welcome to Making It with Terry Wollman, the show that explores the secrets, successes, and strategies for making it in the music biz. And now, here's your host, Terry Wollman.
Welcome back. I'm here with Ken Kragen, and we were just talking about the Smothers Brothers, which was an amazing television show at the time. It was, as far as entertainment, but it was also politically sort of irreverent. and shook the trees a lot, and that's what I remember about watching it. So tell me about that experience, how that all came about, because you went from one job, your first job, to your second, meeting the Smothers Brothers.
The Smothers Brothers, the first show they had failed. It was on for a year, but it didn't. It was one where Tommy played an angel. I think you can still see it on late night television. And it didn't do well.
Right.
Although we did have 20, I think we got 26 episodes. In those days, unlike now where they'll put you on for 3 shows or 6 shows
see if
and
it
you're
flies.
off.
Right.
In those days, they didn't have that kind of feedback, and you'd get a whole year worth of shows. But at the end of that we didn't have anything going. And Abe Lasvogel, who was the head of the William Morris Agency, sold CBS on the idea that all their stars were getting old. They had Ed Sullivan, and they had Sid Caesar.
Right.
And they were all getting old, and that they needed young talent. And Bonanza on NBC was just ripping up the ratings and was #1 for 8 years, and no one could beat it.
Right.
But they figured, well, this is a cheap show to do. We'll put it on the air against Bonanza. It's not going to win. It's not going to go anywhere. And, we come on the air at the time of the Vietnam War.
Right.
We come on, when young people are looking for an alternative.
Right.
And all of a sudden, we become the hot show. And the funny part of it is, we used to say, and it's really true, that maybe 5 minutes of the show was controversial.
Right.
But it felt like, because it was so outrageous for the time, if you watch it now, you would think, what's the big deal? What is the problem?
Right.
We didn't say 4-letter words, although we'd put them in the script very often so the network would miss some double entendre.
Oh, you'd give them something to
give them
take
something
out?
to take out, We'd give them, that was one of the techniques.
Nice.
And they were very naive, particularly about drugs.
Right.
We had a little segment on that show called Have a Little Tea with Goldie, which was all about drugs. And There was a lady named Lee French, and she was fabulous. She'd come really literally out of a commune, an actress who'd been living in a commune. And she'd get on the air and she'd go, "Hi, I'm Goldie, and I want to greet all you women today the way I always do. Hi."
Right.
And everything in her whole it's one of the funniest bits
great.
ever. And we got away. They never censored that segment.
Right.
They didn't understand
right,
what
they
was
didn't.
going on in that culture.
Right.
They didn't get it. They only started really getting on us when particularly Johnson and the government got really upset with some of the things we were, saying about him and stuff.
Right. Well, you also ran Pat Paulsen for president.
Yeah, we did. I loved doing that. That was one of the most fun times I've ever had.
Yeah.
And the weird part is he ended up getting 200,000 votes. We didn't want, because we were pretty liberal, we didn't want to hurt Humphreys, who was the Democratic candidate.
Right.
And we didn't want to take votes away, so we really went on the air in the weeks before and pleaded with people not to vote for him.
I remember that.
And they still voted.
They did, right. I remember that as
well.
well.
They still voted.
Yeah.
But, that was the year that Bobby Kennedy was assassinated. There was a lot of he would have been probably elected. And that was a tumultuous year with lots of things happening that were unfortunate. But it was quite an experience. But the big lesson I learned from the Smothers relates to the question you asked me before we took the break. And that is about sort of the things that came out of the class when I did all that background research.
Right.
I went back and looked at my time with the Smothers Brothers and other careers and realized that every time we got real success, it took like at least 3 major impressions out there that any recipient would get for them to take some action, turn on our show, buy our record, come to the concert, whatever it was. And I saw it literally in the fact that the very first month that I had the Smothers, one particular week, they were on 3 major television shows at one time. And that exposure of it was the first time, just the concept that there was something magical about threes.
Yeah.
And later, as I went into it more and more and more, I realized that it took multiple impressions to get people's attention, and that you couldn't sell them anything or get them to take any action unless you got at least 3 impressions in front of them in a very limited period of time. And that particular lesson has been the one that my students forever, because I've been teaching since the 80s, come back to me and say, I use your magic of threes. I use it all the time. I use it in everything. I use it in my social life. I use it in my business life. I use it every way. That if I want to get anybody to take any action, I know that I've got to put 3 impressions out there that they will get. Now, the ancillary to the very important one is that if I'm trying to reach you, Terry, I can aim 3 things at you, and they can hit in a day, which is ideal, or less than a week, which is the sort of maximum that I want you to get 3 impressions in a week, at the most. If I'm trying to reach, hundreds of thousands of people to listen to my music or to turn on the TV and see my show, I need to put 6, 8, 10 impressions out there, different things, coming from different directions, because it's the recipient has to receive 3. And if you're looking for a large mass audience of some kind, getting 3 impressions to any one person there is going to take a whole slew of them out there.
You have to cast a wide net.
And you see it every time.
Right.
Look at the way motion pictures studios advertise their product. They come at you from every direction possible. They've got the stars doing interviews in all kinds of places. They've got ads running on TV and radio and internet. They've got mailings. They've got contests. They've got stuff going on, stunts, every imaginable thing. And so it takes that. Now, I like to tell this story because it is what solidified the magic of threes for me.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
it's
Lionel Richie. Absolutely.
Okay, I'm very fortunate to get Lionel Richie as the closer. He's my client, and he has the #1 record in the country.
All night long.
All night long, and I get him to close the Olympics with it.
Huge.
Okay. I was told, I think this is a little high, that 4 billion people were watching.
So at least a few billion
A few
people.
billion, for sure. And this is when everybody's watching network television.
Right.
Okay,
Live.
because this is 1984.
Right.
He goes on and does We Are the World, and we have 1,000 dancers and incredible visuals, and it's the #1 song in the country and everything. And there's no movement in his career.
Right.
I'm the manager. I mean, one of my students said to me, Mr. Kragen, you were the manager. Why didn't you apply the magic of threes? I said, I hadn't taught it yet. I hadn't gone back.
Right.
I didn't know the principle.
Right.
We had nothing around it. We didn't do any media particularly. We didn't have a record out at that point. Nothing around it. Nothing surrounding it.
Because you didn't think you needed to.
We thought we had the biggest piece of exposure you could ever have.
Right.
And that's the mistake people make, particularly in the entertainment field.
Right.
Since you have a lot of people watching who are musicians and others. You make the mistake, I'm on the Tonight Show. Oh, I've got it made.
Right.
Or, I've got this record coming out and there's a big push behind it. I've got to make. No, it's multiple impressions in a concentrated period of time. And the lesson of Lionel Richie is 6 months later, he hosts the American Music Awards.
Right.
Okay? He's on the cover of TV Guide, which at the time is the biggest publication in America. He writes and records We Are the World with Michael Jackson, and we record it that night. The week following, he does all kinds of press. We do press conferences and everything. And 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, he hosts the American Music Awards.
Right.
So, but 2-3 weeks later, he's a guest on the Grammys,
right.
and he wins 3 Grammys. He won 6 American Music Awards. He won 3 Grammys. Okay? Now, his career goes through the roof. But the truth is, if you added up all the people who saw him on all those places, you still wouldn't come to as many people as saw him on the Olympics.
Right.
The difference was they saw multiple impressions. Tons of them saw and his career skyrocketed. His records went, we were a little late with a record, but we got a record out that went through the roof. Everything did well because it was multiple impressions in a concentrated period of time.
Right.
The magic of 3 works, totally, totally works, and it works in every way you can think of.
Right.
I don't know what our time for break is here, but I'll tell you one more story because I think this magic of threes is such a valuable thing. I love to tell a story of using it in my personal relationship with my wife.
And I love that you just said that, because it gets back to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's, the important thing here is life, not just music or
and
money.
the wonderful thing about the Magic 3 is it's not just a device for your career.
Right.
It's a device for everything in your life where you want someone else to take action.
Right.
Go out with you, be good to your kid. I don't know what it's. You want their attention to do something.
Yeah.
Okay. In this case, my wife and I had gone to the same restaurant. It was no longer here, called Chasen's in L.A. Very famous old restaurant. Sat at the same table for Valentine's Day every year. Right. Okay. We had it reserved for Valentine's Day. That particular year, Trisha Yearwood's appearing in New York on Valentine's Day in Central Park. I've got to leave and fly to New York that morning. I go out during the week before and I buy a basket full of things that my wife, and my daughter was born then, so things that a baby would like and things my wife would like. I put a Valentine's Day card with it, and I leave it, because I leave really early in the morning for the plane to New York, and I leave it on the front, bottom of the stairs in the front hall. So when she gets up, she finds the basket with the Valentine's Day card and everything. Now, I head off to New York on the plane, but I arrange to have flowers and candy delivered in the afternoon. And they screw it up a little, but they finally get it here, and it comes in okay. That night, she has decided to go keep she doesn't want us to lose that standing reservation. Right. So she takes a friend, another girlfriend, not a guy.
Yeah, right.
Not another guy.
That might have been a little inappropriate.
But our best friend still this day is her former boyfriend that she went with for 6 years before she met me. So she could have taken him, but I still wouldn't have been great. Yeah. Anyway, I arranged to pick up their meal. I send over a bottle of champagne with 2 glasses and another Valentine's Day card. Yeah. Okay. Does she call me after she gets the basket? No. Does she call me when she gets the flowers and candy? No. When she gets the third thing at the restaurant, she tracks me down there. This is not in the days
cell
of
phones.
No cell phones.
Yeah.
She tracks me down in New York. She's in tears, telling me how much she loves me and how much she appreciates what I do for her. Magic of threes.
Right.
Same thing. And I had a target.
Wow.
I could target her.
Right.
I didn't have to put 10 things out there.
Right.
I could put a target that would affect her.
Right.
And it works over and over and over. I've got a million examples of it, but that's, it really does work.
So what would you suggest now for, especially since radio has changed, Billboard charting doesn't have the same weight as it used to financially. It doesn't automatically lead to work or performance opportunities like it used to. But for an artist who's putting out a single, regardless of the genre, what are three things to do besides radio promotion?
Well, let me start with what not to do.
Okay? Even better.
And what not to do is figure the 3 pieces of social media, say Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, which, by the way, is 70% of the marketplace is Facebook, even though a lot of young people aren't.
They're not following it now.
Yeah. But those 3, let's say, or any of the myriad of other social media, I count them as one.
They're redundant in a way.
They are redundant. If you have gotten an Instagram on something, you may have looked at it. If you then get a tweet on it, maybe, but maybe not. If you then get a Facebook post or something like that, you're going to ignore it.
So social media is collectively
social media one.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Number 2 is finding, first place, when I teach at UCLA in the first 10 minutes, I say, if you're going to get people's attention, it has to be unique or special.
That's right.
It's got to have real substance to it. There's got to be something there that if you get their attention, they're going to take action on. They're going to care about it. If it's a record, is it good enough? Is it unique enough, special enough that they're going to care about it and want to have it?
Right.
Okay. And then the third thing is it's got to be unexpected.
Right.
On the word unexpected, the UCLA marching band marches right in one door.
Loud and proud. Right.
In full uniform, through the room and out.
Right.
Okay?
And you've made your point.
And I've said, okay, where's the marching band and everything do?
Right.
How are you going to get people's attention? So you want to look at not only using Facebook or the media, what is it about what you're trying to get them to buy or listen to that's unique, that's special, and that can in fact gather their attention if you can get that message out. So that becomes the core. Where's your wow factor becomes the core thing that you need to look at. If you're simply putting out what anybody else has done. I mean, you know, even to these days, people come to me almost every week wanting to redo We Are the World. I say, look, it was already done.
Right.
Or redo Hands Across America.
Yeah.
No, we did it.
Right.
You know, find something that's totally unique, that's fresh, that's different. What is different about you? What is different about your product or your service or whatever it is? Find the unique factor. Then go multiple directions. Then come, you know, a variety of ways. Get a television appearance if you can, although you almost have to get a certain amount of sales, you know, to, I mean, but what can you make in way of a video that is totally fresh and has got a wow factor to it? Where is the viral aspect of what you're doing? You really need, I mean, the marketplace is, because anybody can go into it now. You don't have to be a big record company. And, you know, in the old days, when I was making record deals way back in the 60s and 70s and even 80s, you needed the power of a record company to get anywhere.
It was
to
an
get
elite
attention.
playing field. Yeah.
Now, if you make a truly special, unique, maybe outrageous video, all of a sudden on YouTube, you can have a viral situation, and now the record companies and everybody else is chasing you. And it can open all those other doors.
Right.
The one thing that I'm sure you've told artists over and over and over is, you're not going to make money on the record itself, probably.
Right. Records now are a very expensive business card.
Yeah, exactly. It's touring, it's merchandise.
And an expression of art.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The record certainly is that.
Yes.
But it's an attention getter.
Right.
And that's why it's got to be unique, and any video that goes with it has got to be unique. But the income side of the business is really shifted to touring and merchandise, sponsorships. You know, it's finding those ways and utilizing everything, every venue, every aspect, personal calls, building a coterie of followers who will get out and work for you, you know, to care enough, believe enough that they'll get out and work for you.
Right. Power of threes.
Power of three.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it does work in your personal relationships as well, so don't forget that. Even more importantly, you have a website. We're going into our next break, but I want everybody to go to your website, which is...
It's just KenKragen.com.
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 We'll also put up a link on your artist page that we're setting up on Enter Talk Radio. But I encourage everybody to go to the website because there's great information. You know, one of the things that you believe in is giving things away as well as making money.
Yeah.
You know, and one doesn't undo the other for you.
There's also on YouTube and Vimeo.
Right.
Vimeo, I think if you can get to it, I've got a 45-minute speech to 2,000 people at a conference. The whole thing is up there.
That's great.
Yeah. And it goes much deeper into the things we're
I think
talking
we'll put
about.
a link up to that as well for everybody.
Yeah,
So
I can get you
we're
that.
going to be right back. We're heading into our next break. Thank you, Ken. I'm here with Ken Kragen, and we will be right back, so stick around.
Hey, everybody, this is Phil Perry. Stay tuned for another portion of Making It with Terry.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on InterTalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element. Affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on InterTalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Hi, this is Matt LaPointe from Motu. You're listening to Making It with Terry Wollman.
Welcome to Making It with Terry Wollman, the show that explores the secrets, successes, and strategies for making it in the music biz. And now, here's your host, Terry Wollman.
Welcome back. I'm here talking with Ken Kragen about life, music, business, the power of threes, and I want to ask you some other things because I know some of the things that you teach are really interesting to me. You know, let me just read some off. One of the things that you talk about is it's easier to accomplish the impossible than the ordinary.
Yep.
What do you mean by that?
Well, it goes back to what we were talking about with the magic of threes, and where we were saying that you can't sell anything to anybody and get them to take any action unless you get their attention.
Right.
If you're doing the ordinary that's been done before,
Right.
people go, "Oh, that's nice. I've been there."
Yeah.
They're too busy in their lives to pay any attention,
Right.
and they don't do it. They
Right.
don't take any action. On the other hand, if you set out to accomplish the impossible, or what people view as impossible, and you get anywhere near the goal, or you just start to have a little bit of success making it work, now everybody's talking about it. Or maybe you haven't even started yet, but maybe it's just the idea that's crazy, like Hands Across America, putting 5.5 million people holding hands in a continuous line from New York to LA.
There's all kinds of reasons why that won't work.
It won't.
But
we did it.
Right.
Okay? And we did it in part because it was impossible.
Right.
Okay? Because once people realized maybe I can be part of something that's historic, they all came out.
Right.
And the impossible becomes the thing that people talk about, that the media get interested in.
Right.
You know, I mean, I hate to say it because I'm a pretty liberal guy, but, you know, it was impossible for Donald Trump to get elected.
Right.
And he did.
Right. And I saw that coming.
And a lot of people did. Michael Moore talked a lot about it before the election. And it was because it was so outrageous and so completely impossible. And there was no way that a guy who had said the things he did and done the things he did would win.
Right.
And yet he won. And why? Because he got the attention of a group of voters who he needed to win that election.
Right.
And he resonated with them as much for being outrageous as maybe even today I heard a discussion in which they were talking about how much people responded to how much they hated the inactivity of government and the things that weren't getting done. And here at least was somebody who was promising to change everything.
Right.
Okay? Now it didn't happen that way.
Right.
And there's been a lot of issues. But forget politics. Just talking about the fact that if you want to get people's attention, you've got to do stuff.
Right.
That's interesting. So it becomes so much easier.
It's a great example.
People come to me, I mentioned it earlier, they come to me almost weekly to redo We Are the World or Hands Across America. I did some of Live Aid or NetAid. They always want to go back and do those things because they look at them and go, you know, we need we need another Hands Across America now,
Right.
you know. I say, fine, but it can't be Hands Across America.
Right, we've already done that.
It did it.
Right.
And we proved that it isn't impossible. And people aren't going to look at it as something unique. What are you going to do that's totally unique?
Right.
What's different? What's, you know, the bucket challenge, the ice bucket
Right.
challenge. I mean, look at the phenomenal success of that.
Right.
Only based on who's going to be willing to pour ice water over their head. Well, it turned out a lot of people.
Right.
And because it was different, it
Right.
was fun, it was, you know, people. The other thing is we have very little, with everybody tweeting everybody else, particularly young people, there's very little coming together as community.
Right.
And if you can find something that brings people together, you can create, that's what Hands Across America did.
Right.
People said, oh, you know, I got out with my friends and I did it. And, I mean, and it just got everybody's imagination.
And even towards the end of the launch of Hands Across America, you were almost shut down by the insurance companies.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
But one of your points of view is that there is always a solution.
Yeah.
And you found a solution with the insurance company. You found an insurance company. What was the statistic?
it's kind of a funny
with
story.
200,000 people.
Yeah, the actuaries,
Yeah.
the guys who compute what chance there is you're going to have an accident
Right.
or whatever, they computed that for every 200,000 people there would be one death.
Death, right.
And we had
So you had to be
5.5
liable,
million,
right.
yeah. Okay, and so they were telling us we had to have this insurance. And I had a board in those days, big mistake, but I had a board full of extremely big artists.
Right.
Harry Belafonte and
Right.
Kenny Rogers and Lionel Richie and, and Michael Jackson. Not people who were very scared of being sued for, one death in every 200,000 or something.
Right.
But so they really gave me an ultimatum.
Right.
You have a week to get insurance or else. And there turned out to be only one insurance company. I don't even remember what the name of it is now. One insurance company that would do this. And I flew on the red-eye to New York and got into New York. And as I was settling into my room, I realized somebody had told me that this insurance guy I was going to see was a Kenny Rogers fan.
Oh,
I woke Kenny up, or maybe I didn't. Kenny was always up early. But I asked Kenny that as soon as this man got in his office, would he call him and convince him to give us our insurance? And about an hour or two later, Kenny called me back and said, I've spoken with him. He was seemingly thrilled that I called him. He turned out to be a big fan of Kenny's.
Nice.
And he said, you'll have the insurance. Now, what Kenny didn't tell me is that he would charge us $2.5 million for the insurance.
Minor detail.
and that we had to self-finance the first $500,000 in liabilities in what do you call it, suits or whatever that came up.
Yeah.
But it didn't turn out to be that bad.
That was a deductible in a sense.
The deductible was $500,000,
Right.
and it turned out there was one death.
There was. Okay.
Yeah, it really was nothing to do with the line.
Right.
This group of people drove from Atlanta because the line didn't go down through Atlanta, they drove to Oklahoma or someplace like that. And on the way home, and I think when I say one death, I think the woman was pregnant. They had been drinking, and they were in the car, and they had an accident, and the woman in the passenger seat was killed, and they came after us and claimed it was, the fault of Hands Across America. And it wasn't at all.
No. That's just being litigious.
Yeah, we had very few. We had one other thing where somebody opened a folding chair and stood on it and cut off a finger or part of a finger or something and sued. But we learned a big lesson in that. Interesting lesson. Yeah. Insurance people taught me. Pay them off right away. Find a figure and give them, here's $10,000.
Make it go away.
Okay, because you will spend far more than that fighting it.
Right.
And you'll, over a period of time with the lawyer's expense and everything else. And in most cases, they're just looking for a quick payout.
Right.
It doesn't mean pay somebody in a totally, frivolous, dumb suit.
Right.
But that you can get rid of a lot of this stuff by just acting and moving quickly.
And not necessarily being caught up in having to be right.
Right. And you never know. You go to trial and a jury sympathizes with the poor person that
with half a finger.
Half a finger,
yeah.
Goes,
right.
Look at this.
You also talk about another point that you teach is getting caught telling the truth.
Oh yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Probably the second most prominent thing that people refer to in my classes, or when they've heard me lecture at corporations, which I do a lot of.
Right.
Is this whole aspect that honesty, getting caught telling the truth, that honesty is a tremendous tool, that you can truly build a career with honesty. I mean, when I came to Los Angeles way back in the 1960s, I had one objective, and that was to gain the respect of my industry. That was my only, and I realized that if you were considered the most honest guy anybody knew, you were going to have everybody's respect. And sure enough, I developed that over the years. But I teach it as a technique.
Right.
And I teach it as if you can find a way to confess to something you did wrong or some mistake you made, when it doesn't seem to be directly, when you could have gotten out of it, you know, I'll give you an example in a second. If you can do that, you build trust that you're always going to tell the truth.
Right.
So the example I use, one of the best examples, true story, is I made the first Gambler movie for Kenny Rogers and created that and produced it. And he called me up and he said, we don't know exactly when it's going to air and what kind of promotion they do. Will you get a hold of Bud Grant at CBS, the president of CBS at the time, and find out the details of that? And I said, sure, Kenny, I'll make the call. I was planning to anyway. I was usually on top of that stuff, but I hadn't done it yet. I forgot. I was very busy. In those days, I was managing an awful lot of big stars.
The Bee Gees.
Yeah, well, I think I probably had Lionel Richie.
Right.
I had a bunch of big people at the time, and I was very busy.
Right.
And I had a big company and staff, and they didn't do it. Now, he calls me back the next day and says, what did Bud say? And I have some choices. Easy choices.
Right.
I can easily say, I left word for Bud, he hasn't returned the call yet.
Right. Who's going to know?
Never.
Right.
Oh, well, on the other hand, what if Kenny just happened to be walking on Fairfax Avenue near the CBS studios, and Bud Grant was there, and he said, why don't you call my manager back? And Bud said, he never called me. I never got a message.
Right.
Now I've hurt my credibility.
Right.
But I don't do that. I'm delighted to be caught making a mistake.
You see it as an opportunity.
It's a terrific opportunity to say to Kenny, you know what? I totally screwed up and forgot.
Yeah.
Next, if I don't write it down, there's a good chance I'll forget. Next time, say to me, Ken, did you write that down? Okay? I'll make the call now and I'll get right back to you. I have just enormously built my credibility.
Right.
When I have to go to him and convince him, you know, that the moon is green or something,
right,
he's going to believe me now because he knows I tell the truth.
Right.
You know? I mean, it's one. I go back because politics is on our minds so much now.
Yeah, it is.
That one of the biggest problems that this White House has is the constant group of lies that are so obvious that people can, you know, how big was the inauguration crowd? I mean, it was a huge joke at the just at the Emmys the other night because you could see the difference.
Right.
You know, when you start telling untruths, people start distrusting you. And then comes a moment, certainly it's true with the President of the United States, where you're going to have to get people to believe that you know what you're doing and that what you're telling them is the truth. And if you haven't built that trust, you haven't got anything. And it's true in every aspect of our life, and it's so simple to do.
I absolutely agree, and you know, and see that as bringing a great deal of integrity to everything that you do as well. Why do you think that our president breaking that rule right now every day since he's been in office doesn't diminish his following? What's going on with that?
Yeah, part of the thing is they tend to look at the fact that he's so different than what we've had, and he covers it with huge amount of distraction.
Right.
There's always some other thing
right.
that media is paying attention to or that it's involved.
Right.
Where he where there are distractions, and so as a result, I mean, it's a very fascinating social, psychological situation because
it is.
It's amazing. What we really don't know is if he doesn't have to get elected again till 2020, and what we don't know is how much has that damaged the base, and we'll learn, we'll see. But the other problem is the other side has to have tremendous credibility.
Right.
The other side has got to build its credibility.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens. There's a lot of factors. Unfortunately, politics is both an easy example here and truly so complicated with redistricting and vote manipulation and all kinds of stuff that can happen that you really don't know what's going to make a major difference at this point.
Right.
I certainly can't see that telling an untruth in the long run is going to work to his advantage. And he's starting to back off that a little bit.
Right.
After the Emmys was the first time I've seen him tweet something really funny. That was sort of a joke.
Right.
In a way. And it was the first time, and I went, oh, my God.
Yeah, there's
good.
a shift.
Right. Yeah. I wonder if he had to have a writer write that, or did he get that? That's great, It doesn't bring me to want to vote for him.
No, nor I, but it makes me hopeful.
Yeah.
That there's a change that's starting.
Change and something happening.
Absolutely.
Few things.
But for you, that your desire and understanding of how important it is to be truthful in life and in your career, I think was a big part of what allowed you to pull together 46 artists for 45 artists for We Are the World, and
I had credibility.
There's an integrity factor that you bring to everything that you do, and people know that about you.
Well, where it really proved critical was in the whole Tonight Show controversy
with Helen Kushner. Yeah, I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, because there I had, with the media, tremendous credibility.
Right.
And particularly with a guy named Robert Hilburn, who was at the time the entertainment director, writer for the Los Angeles Times.
Yeah.
And when Helen Kushner threw my client Trisha Yearwood off the Tonight Show because I wouldn't give her Travis Tritt,
right?
Who, by the way, using the magic of threes, I had built up to look much bigger than he was.
Right.
So she had to have him.
Yes.
And I wouldn't get him. I wouldn't pull him off of Arsenio Hall and cancel that in order for him to do the Tonight Show. She got furious and threw Trisha off the show, even though it was months later that Trisha was going to do the show.
Yeah.
When that went public, everybody I dealt with, including Howard Stern, who was a good friend of Helen's, believed my side of it.
Right.
Because I had a reputation for telling the truth.
Right, and you spoke the truth. You didn't pull any punches on that. Did you ever? You don't have any regrets about that?
No, none whatsoever.
Yeah.
No, and in fact, they made a movie of it, and I got to
play
myself.
You played yourself in the movie.
It was fun.
We're getting to the end of our show.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a really quick question with a short answer, and then I've got a closing question for you. I know, in addition to everything else that you do, being an athlete and basketball player and all the other amazing things, photographer, calligrapher, you're really into astronomy. I just went to JPL and had my mind blown.
Did you get a tour there?
Had the private tour, and we looked down over the mission control and everything. You've actually built your own observatory?
Yeah. I did up in built a home in the middle of California on a ranch that we had, and the first thing that went up was a pillar that would hold a huge telescope.
Right.
And the fourth floor, or really the fourth, there was a basement, wine cellar, so it counted the thing as the fourth floor. Was the roof opened electronically and a spectacular telescope. And I had some of the top astronomers come and spend nights with me. Yeah, astronomy's been just great for me, and I got for a couple of years recently to work with JPL on
you've been
project.
consulting for them.
And I'm sort of playing around with something for them right now. In fact, I got a text from one of the guys there today asking if I'd followed through on something, and I realized I hadn't. So. But I love astronomy.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite areas. if I had been physically able to, I think I would have tried to be an astronaut. But I had some color blindness. I tried to get in the Air Corps, and I had color blindness to greens and browns or pinks or something, and I got drummed out.
I need to cut to our closing question because we're almost out of time.
Yeah.
At this point of your life, Ken, with everything that you know to be true, what would you tell your younger self?
Be a little less trusting of investment people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Not just a little, but a lot.
Yeah.
Don't think the money source is going to go on forever. Even though I earned a lot of money, between some mishandling of it and just the fact that I slowed down in recent years, I've had to continue to work and work pretty hard.
Right.
But I don't really want to retire, so maybe it's a good thing, like everything else in my life.
Right.
I think that's probably the one area of my life that I could think that I would want to be cautious about and say. And we've been very much, we just have one child, we have a daughter, and we've gotten her to invest to save a certain amount of money with a really good investment person. Several times a year she turns in money to them, and she's building a fund, and she's in good shape. And so I think we have a part of my younger self, a part of me that's younger, we've tried to implant that. Because I think there's a great belief when you're successful, extremely successful, you just try and live in the moment and not worry about the future. And, part of that is thinking, well, hey, I might get run over by a truck tomorrow and not have a future, so I better enjoy as much as I can now. I think that's really the biggest lesson that I probably would have told yourself. Would have taught myself,
Thank you so much for spending the hour with me. I'm here with Ken Kragen. And please go to Ken's website to stay abreast of all the wonderful things that you continue to do.
I don't make anything from it, but you can get my book. You can get my book on Amazon. You can still buy copies of it. I don't get anything out of that. And you can buy it very cheaply. And it's called Life is a Contact Sport. And I only recommend that if you want more depth about these same things. The only thing you have to apply is it was done before social media, so you have to put the social media piece into it, which I'm sort of attempting to do now in a new version.
Ken, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's great to see you.
Great.
We'll see everybody next week. Thank you for spending the hour with us.
Tune in again next week for another great episode of Making It with Terry Woolman.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.